Welcome everyone to Disability Champions, Building a Network for Community Mentoring at Transition and Beyond. I'd like to introduce you to all of our speakers for this session. Dr. Tammy Ellis Robinson, Assistant Professor at SUNY Albany, Katrina Hazel, Disability Advocate Lead at Regional 1. I think I've got your positions flipped potentially. Katrina Hazel, Disability Advocate Lead at Regional Workforce Transformation Center, and Emily Ellis, CEO and founder of Giving Back to the Community Resource Center in GBTC Limited Sight and Sound Production. I'd also like to thank our closed captioner for being here today. I encourage you all to complete the evaluation for today's conference. You'll be receiving a copy of the link via email. And now I will pass it off to our first speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're really excited and pleased to be here today. And throughout everything that we'll talk about when we present and share Disability Champions as the project and program and some of the ideas that it comes from that can be taken away, see this as an invitation because we have come out of a group that extends beyond Emily, Katrina, and I to a collaborative community cooperative who are building together a program that really was born from Katrina's experience and dream and has been taking shape. So you are invited, but let me tell you more. My name is Dr. Tammy Ellis Robinson, as you already heard, and my research interests are deeply embedded in both the field of special education and equity, and ensuring that the intersections of individuals are considered in all aspects of the supports and lifting up a voice that is able to happen for them. And my two co-speakers, I'll let them speak for themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Ellis, and much like Tammy, my interest, I've spent the past 40 years in the field of empowering men and women with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I spent 30 years, close to 30 years at JobPath in New York City, which was one of the first transitional employment programs for individuals moving from school into work. Over 30 plus years, JobPath is now 40 years old. We've helped people move into community integrated recreation and housing and independence. And the other part of my life is I do a lot of work training advocates and parents and work with my family and a very small family-owned video production company where we help to empower young people in our multicultural communities to tell their stories through video. So glad to be here.
Hi everyone, my name is Katrina. I'm an advocate. I'm also former Miss Wheelchair New York 2018. And like it was mentioned previously, I work for the Regional Centers for Workforce Transformation as the self-advocacy lead for Region 4, but we are also now statewide, and I educate DSP workers and individuals with disabilities on the core competencies, which is a tool to train direct support professionals. And I also work on many different projects, and I serve on many different committees that impacts the disability community.
So thank you. And they'll continue to chime in, and I'm going to just share with you the objectives for today. We want to share and talk with you about the benefits of peer and community mentoring, which is the focus and centerpiece of the Disability Champions program, and a lot of what is happening in many programs across the state that exist to support individuals with disabilities, pursuing their preferred outcomes. We want to talk a little bit about mentoring networks and mapping your own mentoring network. Some of the focus of Disability Champions will be not only the idea of connecting mentors with young people with disabilities as they transition from secondary to post-secondary options and outcomes, but also that self-empowerment that comes with being aware of your mentors and thinking about how they connect to your goals. And then finally, we'll share and deepen our invitation, details and opportunities for participation with the Disability Champions Mentoring Program, which we are launching right now. You are one of the first audiences to hear sort of the framework that we've been developing to connect K-12 schools and individuals as they are transitioning from K-12 school to their post-secondary situation, school, work, wherever. So the work came initially out of transition and the experiences of transition. We all met and began having conversations around the idea of equity at transition and considering how intersections of identity affect the way that the transition from high school to post-secondary options might affect the individual. We included linked here the transition guide, but this sort of passion and desire to connect and build community programming that is interagency and across the community was really born from thinking about experiences. At our most recent summit, Katrina shared her experience, and it really impassioned many of the individuals who attended. Katrina, I invite you to share a little bit more about what you shared with us there.
So I'll share some of the things that I shared with at the conference, and really my idea came from my transition plan. My transition plan from high school didn't include much of anything that it should be. It was just simply I was simply just given one option, a day program. I was told college was not possible for me due to my physical disabilities and needing additional supports. So it was just basically, I was given one path to my future, and they didn't expect much from me. They didn't help me in terms of transition plan. My transition plan and my IEP just simply included what I told them that I wanted to do with my future.
And so sort of envisioning the future that you did eventually begin to work toward, which is attending college and extending beyond what was presented to you at transition. Together, you envisioned this idea of mentoring that would really give an opportunity to have that advocacy built from the beginning of the transition process, which, as many of you may know, begins much earlier, around ages 12 to 14 in K-12 schools. The focus of this mentoring program specifically, and of the considerations of intersectionality, include an understanding of how those intersections of identity might affect an individual. And so within the world of special education, the context or the understanding of how disability or ability might affect what people are able to do or what others perceive individuals as able to do is just one component of their identity that may affect where they can go next. We all know that things like race and ethnicity and the disproportionality that exists with opportunities outside of particular neighborhoods or particular situations has been pervasive within the field of special education and across adult categories of disability or adult experiences with disability services. In addition to race and ethnicity, things like sexual orientation, linguistic or language, primary language, and others, all can affect how an individual is perceived as competent, is given opportunities, and really the way that their assets and strengths are looked upon throughout the transition process. So the focus here is to include in an equity context a consideration of all of those intersections of identity. In person-centered planning, and specifically thinking about the person-centered planning that is engaged for individuals with disabilities across many agencies within our state and throughout the country, the idea of circles of support, or thinking about all of the individuals who exist in one's sphere and can possibly help or be a part of achieving preferred outcomes as determined by the individual, is one way that we look at building or getting to, or a tool or avenue of getting to those preferred outcomes. And this is very much aligned with mentoring. In fact, it implies mentoring. And so today we'll sort of connect that idea of circles of support and digging into circles of support, many of which, if you went to earlier sessions in this strand today, things like what can be achieved through Dream Team, or things that were talked about in YLAN, it's all these different ways of mentoring and building community and bringing community together. And these circles of support, which there's different ways of thinking about them, of mapping them with individuals. And what we invite and what we'll sort of dig into today is how the individual can take hold and take charge of planning not only the initial looking at that map, but continuing to manipulate, think about, and consider where there's mentorship, where there are resources, and where others can be, along with those mentors who will work with them. Mentoring is a tool that can be used in many contexts and in many ways. You can have mentorship where there's one mentor working with many. You can have one-to-one mentoring. You can have what's considered distance or e-mentoring, which during this time of COVID has been a lot of what's been going on because we've needed to connect digitally, group mentoring, peer mentoring, and we seek within this Disability Champions Network to really utilize many and really all of these, maybe not speed mentoring, but all of these types of mentoring tools and configurations to work with an individual. And we'll talk a bit more about that, but the idea is that if we think about it broadly, it's really all of the relationships and connections and ways that we touch and help one another grow that mentorship is important. Mentoring is beneficial to mentors and mentees and can be an effective tool for improving outcomes, attitudes, interpersonal skills, and relationships for both parties. And development of mentoring networks and a community of support are key to supporting young people with disabilities as they approach adulthood. This process can occur through a naturalistic process and often does, our families, our friends, others in our community, but it can also be developed through programmatic and intentional supports. And there are many which exist. Building an understanding of the value of mentorship among young people through explicit mentor networks. In other words, having them map and think about, okay, what needs do these different relationships serve for me, can help them to use this strategy for achieving those goals, those preferred outcomes throughout their lives. And the idea is to build a strategy and relationship simultaneously through this network, where we can explore the possibilities of mentorship and learn and practice mentor network mapping, and then at the same time be building goals and creating connections across the community. This slide shares this idea of reciprocal mentorship. And in that, I mean, there are benefits within the mentoring process, and this goes across the board for both the mentor and the mentee. In the Disability Champions Project, we are proposing multiple types of mentoring relationships. One being peer and near peer mentors, so younger people who are still, in K-12 schooling situations, and young adults who have perhaps just finished with high school and are in college or at the beginning of whatever came next for them, as well as mentorship through adults or members of or people who work in particular industries and throughout the community. And for each of these, there are benefits. There are lessons as a reminder, an opportunity to gain perspective, to learn something new, and the development of leadership skills on both sides, encouragement, empowerment, someone to talk to, many meaningful components that are reciprocal in a meaningful relationship. And we seek to focus on those meaningful relationships. Katrina, I know you wanted to perhaps share a bit about some of those relationships.
I think for this one, in terms of the mentee, I think that the students with disabilities will finally have a chance to have a role model, and will finally have more than one path to their future, because they'll get to be on a road to like a new discovery, and they will have someone to help them navigate throughout the systems like college or agencies or jobs and help them to get the resources that they need to live the life their dreams. And for mentors, I think they'll become allies and advocates, and they'll be able to change lives.
Absolutely. And that really is, so we speak generally about mentorship, and obviously it can exist in many areas, but that really is the goal and the passion of our work in Disability Champions Mentoring Network. It is really a hope that we will build meaningful, we've already begun to build meaningful connections, meaningful networking, meaningful relationships that move and flow in both directions, so that the strengths of all of the individuals are important and useful, and the desires and goals of all of the individuals are really front and center in the planning. I'm going to share a bit about a specific theory that sort of underlies some of the mapping idea that I talked about initially. And this comes from Montgomery's work on mentoring that goes across all students as they move into the next step. And Montgomery looks specifically at college students transitioning, but it can be applied in, if we think about person-centered planning and some of the, not planting, but planning, some of the tools and processes that exist there, it's really very similar. And so the first is roadmaps, and the second is the building of mentoring networks. And roadmaps are simply that, talking, knowing yourself to create goals, to create a plan for the future, and then plotting that plan, thinking about that plan. Not to say that it can't change or adjust, but it's a big part of where the focus starts. And in an equity context, this means considering all components of an individual and not deciding that as we build that map that we know what an individual is considering, but rather that they get to know themselves and can speak to whatever goals and whatever preferred outcomes they may be seeking to move toward. That's not to say that no guidance or tools for self-discovery are provided. However, they are the lead on that road. They are the driver of the vehicle. And then the second component of Montgomery's work is the idea of mentor networks. And this kind of is connected to the idea of circles of support, but it extends to include even more than the individuals there, but to also include the resources. And it's really, I've included a Microsoft document that you can look at that's aligned with some of the visuals that Montgomery uses in her work, but it's really an opportunity to map, plot, and plan who there is to support you, what the things that are, that you have already, and then what are the things that are needed. The first step, again, all of these are from Montgomery's work, is the road mapping, which includes, much like in person-centered planning models everywhere, and I bring that up to just show how closely aligned what's recommended for all is recommended for all, is self-reflection and getting to know who I am, but then also what do I need to get to the goals that I want to get to, and then establishing a framework to work toward those goals. Within our Disability Champions Network, we're establishing a programmatic framework to sort of connect in this way, so that as individuals examine themselves, there are a team and a network of individuals to connect with them and build a framework for the discussions and the discovery of what that pathway will be. A maintenance means continuing to have that. That's the development of relationships. The way you maintain along that pathway is that you need supports. We talk about that it takes a village, right? And that's what we mean here. It takes a village. It takes many people working together to really connect and ensure that someone's goals are reached. And that's for individuals with disabilities who are in the transition process, and that's for everyone who is in the transition process. So recognizing that these are things and connections that we're explicitly looking for individuals, but that are necessary across all contexts. And then finally, moving ahead. And this is where, even though this particular diagram sets it up in steps, it's more of a cyclical process, because as soon as you review your goals and renegotiate and think about it, you go back to that stage of self-reflection and you look at your framework and think what else needs to be added and so forth. And this is the process of a road mapping. And this is something that we will engage in through this Disability Champions Mentoring Network project that we're referring to. The next step was the mentoring networks. Now this looks like a whole lot, but it's actually pretty simple. The blue is what you already know you have, and the gray is what you need, and the circles are the people, and the rectangles are the things. And so the idea is to take a model like this and in context, think about the individual, what their goals are, and make the connections between what they already have, who they are already working with, and where they might need more support. So for example, if an individual is looking to go and get some training to become an artist, they may have a mentor who they've been working with who is also an artist, but they might not have the materials that they need to do the artwork that they want to have. So they need to say, well, I need some canvases, and that would be one of the gray resource nodes, and the artist that they're working with would be the blue resource node. So the word node just means you know, one piece or component, but it's one tool that can be used, and there are many, to map and explicitly think about, okay, what do I have and what do I need? And doing so within a community. The next thing I wanted to talk about and share with you, I think we all want to share with you, is the actual project, the Disability Champions Mentoring Network. So we've talked a little bit about the theoretical basis behind it, what brought us together. A big component, and Emily's been smiling beautifully as she waits her turn for me to stop talking, right, is this promo here. Emily, I don't know if you could talk a little bit about why we thought about video.
Oh, absolutely. I think the why behind the video is a big part of my life. When my family moved to New York over 42 years ago, I got married. My husband came here to take a job at ABC to work in video production. And as we grew in that business, we began to understand that just the power of video to tell stories and affect change and differences. So over the course of our lives, our small family business, video production business, really focuses on helping young people in multicultural communities use video as a tool to become their voices. You know, if you don't have, how do we tell our stories? If we think in terms of legacy.com, when we first started talking about the project, I said to Tammy and Katrina and the team that, you know, if we don't chronicle our journey, then it's hard to tell our stories. You know, so much like we've used past pictures and old VHS and VCAM pictures to kind of keep a hold to our heritage. What I felt that was very important is every step of this journey needs to be monitored, because here it is 40 years later. I've been in the field myself as an agency director on the community service side. And the way that we train, nurture, and build mentors is really by showing them the stories of the lives of people that, that we work with. But I think the biggest influence in terms of my interest in partnering on the video aspect of this is the power of Katrina's story. You know, because that's the driving force behind this whole Disability Champions network. It's really stories set the stage. Katrina can show and talk about and take us through her life journey in a way that's going to help to develop and train mentors and have an impact that words never could. So pictures are worth 1,000 words, videos are worth 1,000,000 words. Chronicling them, using them across our various venues is truly a way to develop leadership, to train people, and to build capacity.
Thank you. We're going to share our promo video with you. You might recognize the individuals in it. And then Katrina will share a bit more.
Planning the transition after high school is a formal process for all students with disabilities. As I was planning my future in school, I was only given one path, a day program. When I graduated from high school, I felt like there was a whole new world ahead of me, and I created my own path.
Getting to know you and learning about your transition from high school at University at Albany's Equity and Transition Summit inspired collaborative action to build a network addressing the intersections of disability with race, gender identity, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status.
Growing up, I did not have a formal support system outside of my family to teach me advocacy. As a person with a disability, I understand the importance of having a diverse village of advocates and allies supporting me. Through Disability Champions, I can be one of those supporting advocates.
Transition is a tumultuous and tender time for all young people. For young people with disabilities, moving from secondary education to adult life is framed by federal mandates to create a plan for the future. We must go beyond the mandates. An equity focus at transition should prioritize the voice of the individual.
Countless days I lost courage, but I had a community of allies like the powerful community we would like to build through the Disability Champions Mentoring Network. After successfully graduating with an associate's degree from Kingsborough Community College, I envisioned the idea for Disability Champions.
Through mentorship and community building that includes young adults with disabilities as bridging mentors for many other supports, young people will find guidance and confidence to create a self-determined plan for the future.
A village can come together to make this happen for anyone, changing perspectives and opening doors to possibilities. Join Disability Champions as we build a community network.
We have a place for parents. We have a place for community allies.
We have a place for young adult mentors. We have a place for high school youth, and we have a place for you. Come be a change maker and invest in the future. Everyone has a voice. Even the voiceless ones have a voice. One champion, one mentor, many pathways at a time.
Now we'll see if I can successfully turn it off. Okay, not bad. Katrina, do you want to expand upon sort of this dream?
Sure. So I'll share a small vision of my story and how Disability Champions Mentoring Network came about. Was that going to high school and only given one path really opened my eyes to an even greater future. And when I went to college, there wasn't no like paraprofessionals or teacher's assistant to help us throughout the day. There were only like note takers, someone to help us on exams, but there weren't really anyone to talk to us about how our day was going in each of our classes. So I felt like it was important to have like a mentor, even in high school and in college, just to talk to them and share with them ideas about our future and how our day is going. Like in college classes, how the process is going, about our journey, and so much more. And even for my parents, they weren't really sure about what services existed for me until I turned 14. So they weren't really given a path to how to support me as well. And I also live in an underserved community. So in the underserved community, they don't expect young people like myself with or without disability to make it far. So they already have limited expectation for us in terms of both ways.
Tammy, can I add something to
Yes,
what
go
Katrina
ahead.
just said? I think just thinking in terms of what you've described so far and what's in the video, it's this whole notion of in our own voices. And I think a part of the connection for me in particular, having spent 30 years of my life at JobPath and spending the past 15 years working with both the Yonkers and Mount Vernon School District in the 21st Century After School programs, where we use our expertise as video production professionals to give students the opportunity to tell their stories their way. And what's been powerful about that for me in my experience, and which is why I just think this is a perfect opportunity to kind of move that into the Disability Mentoring Network, is that those videos have served as teaching tools. My favorite story from that comes from some work we did around resources and computers in schools, and the students in the Yonkers School District did not have adequate access to computers. So the students told their stories. It was so powerful that the students used that video to do a presentation at a Board of Education meeting, change the dynamics. Video have power, our voices have power. Capturing the stories of each of the mentors and using that as a trajectory to kind of make change, I think is just absolutely important. So that's why I'm all in and buying into this project, particularly not only in terms of the mentor, but in terms of the mentor development and using the voices and videos to really make an impact and inspire change.
Absolutely, that's the first arm. So this project, you might be saying, so wait, what are you talking about? It's multi-pronged, and it has 3 distinct components that came out of these conversations, these connections across a few different agencies. What we seek to do is to serve the underserved communities, serve those spaces where individuals have not had or connected to some of those other supports that exist, and come in to find those connections and be bridging, a bridging project to bridge individual relationships into more complex mentor networks to support individuals. So the first component, which Emily just started to talk about, and then I have another slide for you to talk about what we're working on so far, in our own voice, came out of this space. Emily and I were doing a training where we were looking for representative voices that would represent communities of color with disability, communities of diversity with disabilities, multiple intersecting identities. And there were so many fewer. In fact, there's a hashtag, you may have seen it, disability to white, that sort of specifically seeks that look for representation that goes beyond. So the first part of our project, or one part of our project, is this video piece. And it includes telling the stories, as Emily talked about. And so one part of the invitation today is, if you have a story that you'd like to share, if you know a young person whose story should be shared, we invite you to share their information with us, because we seek to we're starting with Katrina's story as the visionary of this project. And then we would like to continue to add on more stories that are more representative and that share sort of what that transition process is, both for instructional and guidance and training purposes and for advocacy purposes, with a focus on who's telling the story and who's deciding how the story will be told. The second component, and we'll talk more about each as we go, is more of a mentor matching, one-to-one, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And then the third component is family supports, and recognizing we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's about connecting, and connecting where there may be a need, connecting in communities, connecting with schools and organizations. And so we are reaching out and inviting schools, school districts, teachers, transition coordinators who are working with young people in K-12 situations to connect with us. We'll keep saying it throughout, but so that you know, it is a grassroots action research project that includes reflection, collaboration, and a model of connecting what already exists and just threading through with these mentoring connections with this vision. So since there's these three components, we'll talk just a little bit more about each, and I'll ask you, Emily, to share maybe a little bit about where we're going right now in terms of the video piece specifically.
Okay, so it's clear that everyone can pick up my enthusiasm about video stories. And, you know, I kind of had almost forgotten that it really grew out of our search to find video that was reflective of the communities of color that we were talking about post-COVID. We were doing a series for the New York Alliance. And the whole focus there was, as we're now going into the homes of the families that we support, that we needed to think in terms of what that means in terms of cultural uniquenesses, the business of respecting how we enter people's homes, but also finding videos that we can use as examples just to be reflective of the diversity of this quilt that we all live in. So I think the first part of the video series piece was to tell stories, you know, that has a multicultural blend and flavor, you know, in terms of what's been really super nice for us as we've started it. So the video promo piece, we brought together a team of video professionals, young people that have worked with me for the past 15 20 years in the 21st century learning programs, that have grown up writing their stories and then being very reflective and helping us to create something that's warm and upbeat and geared towards young people, but also because my husband has 40 years in the television industry, it has to be high quality. So quality, diversity, telling the story. So a couple of things. One, as we do Katrina's story, we want to show her life, you know, the community. She talks about a community that is, people say disenfranchised. I don't think anyone disenfranchised, but clearly a community that's challenged in terms of resources, provisions. It's not typical suburbia, it's New York. So something that really reflects the layers that families are challenged with. When we went to Katrina's home, we've started filming the documentary, and we're looking at everyone in her circles of support. It was interesting to hear her mom tell us about the fact that even though Katrina's within walking distance from the school, that she had to take a bus, which oftentimes made her late. And she literally could have walked Katrina to school. So systems against reality. You know, the other piece too, in terms of, in many of New York City communities, if you're in a wheelchair, if the weather's bad, the streets and the traffic isn't geared for your mobility. So telling that side of the story, so we want to make it raw and real, because being someone in a New York City community, whether you're in a wheelchair or you have a disability, there's all kinds of factors. Here in Yonkers, we are working with a young lady who has hearing impairments, and we were sharing with her this story, and I was chatting with Tammy about her perhaps being someone we could work with. And she comes from the Dominican Republic, and as we were sharing with her, she's a muralist, so she draws. She did a beautiful mural on a wall in downtown Yonkers that talks about the languages, how language connects us. So she has sign language, she has things that are reflective of the communities in Yonkers. And she said, Katrina's story is my story, because when I went to school, they didn't think I could do anything. You know, and no one and my parents didn't know how to negotiate the system so that I could get what I needed. So this video series is really going to look at those inspiring stories, which tells what the experience is like, but every story has lessons. And how do we take those lessons and use those as applications to develop strategies to inspire change? So this whole video series, yes, it tells a story, but more importantly for all of us that are here in this group right now, we need voices from multicultural communities as we talk about equity, parity, intersectionality, and respect, those pillars that connect communities. So that's what I'm really excited about, is kind of taking stories, making them videos, but for training, for presentations, and for information, and for guiding and providing resources to families and individuals and the school systems, that whole connection piece.
And so one deliverable of this piece, or one sort of concrete component that we're launching in the fall, will be a curriculum that goes alongside these videos to be shared with transition coordinators, special education teachers, parents, and individuals, really to think about these ideas of road mapping, mentor networking, and those stories, and telling your own stories. The second component, and I'll deter to you a little bit to talk more about it, Katrina, and then dive in, is the face-to-face component of our mentoring project, which I think was sort of the initial passion that Katrina shared with us.
So for the first summer pilot program, it will be piloted at my old high school where I attended, and where they only gave me one path. I'm kind of excited to do it because when I do get the chance to go back and visit, they are often asking for my assistance to help transition other students with disabilities like me. And I kind of like laugh and I say, really me? But I do it anyway because I don't want them to basically suffer and be given one path. Just like me, at least I'm able to give them the direction and resources that they may need. And I'm even more excited because I get to show my school, look how far I have come, and be a representative for their school and the school district in my community.
Absolutely. And it's really exciting to think about. I was thinking about this today, in fact, Katrina, the idea that the program builds on itself. So the mentor matching that occurs here, and of course, we're just getting off the ground with our first round happening, Mentor Institute this summer to prepare our mentors, and then connecting with students in K-12 schools in the fall. This is a one-to-one match, but through a process that will include engagement sessions. So in the summer, we'll have few days, several hours institute, really preparing mentors who are young adults, 18 to 30, who are interested in being a part of a young person's life and sharing the transition process, and sharing with them some of those opportunities that exist in the community, talking to them about setting goals and mapping paths, as well as creating mentor networks, and preparing them in many different kinds of ways, working with community supports, working with a lot of the organizations that are there for both adults, there for transition, and there to support K-12 schools throughout the summer. And then in the fall, connecting through both engagement sessions and individual opportunities. So we will in each quarter have an engagement session where mentors and mentees will together come and connect, talk about goal setting, look at paths, career and school, and all kinds of pathways, think about family. I'm really excited to connect with some of the people who I've seen here today, and who we've talked through other organizations on aspects like financial literacy. I was in an earlier session, and I'm sure some of you were there as well, where a library professional, I think she was from Brooklyn Library, and I'm looking forward to reaching out to talk about how we might include in those engagement sessions really that information, that bridging to connect the young people, the youth, to differentiate between them, to all of those resources, and then give feedback, get feedback as a reciprocal process. And again, as I said, it's an action project. So the idea is to reflect and continue to responsively fit in where those needs are most compelling. The third component, and we invite you as well to become a part of this, is the family connection. And this has included several parents of young people, adults, as well as young children still, who are in the system or working at different places in development. And Katrina, perhaps you want to talk a little bit more about your vision in this component of the project.
So my vision for the family connection to this project is seeing my parents' journey raising me with a disability, and basically they raised me with an open book because they weren't given many options or any sense of direction. In terms of raising me, they were just told that I needed to attend early intervention, and then they took it from there. And another part is that I really want to be able to give other parents who have children with disabilities hope through my story and through me sharing my journey with them, whether it's in person or virtually. I think me connecting with parents would give them even more hope and be a role model for them, because so often they don't have role models, that they have children with disabilities that like grew up in the system. So it's, I think I'll be a good example for them. And my parents also grew up and was born and raised in the Caribbean where disability wasn't visible. So this is a point where they get to see disability visible and understand like disability acceptance in a good way.
Absolutely. And I keep saying absolutely, that's my today. We have in our collective, our collaborative who's working on this project, a number of professionals who are also parents. One from NIAM, which is a New York, you'll tell me, Emily, or multicultural providers. And they've, yeah, did I get that right?
New York Association of Emerging Multicultural Providers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that whole
so I apologize
is,
if any of them are here.
Yeah. The whole focus is to work with multicultural agencies across New York State that are in the communities that they support.
And what's really exciting about our connecting with them is their leader has shared her story and her work with her own child with a disability. And so this has kind of evolved into two prongs right now. One is a survey that we are really building recommendations based on messages from families to just share around different aspects or different timelines in the life of their children, categorizing it rural, urban, categories of disability, language, and sharing those stories of, what was important when, what do I wish I knew when? And that is something that we should have ready around midsummer. In addition to that, sharing their stories, sharing those parent stories in small little bites and sound bites, and connecting with those organizations that exist already. There are so many wonderful opportunities to get connected to things like topic circles. And so through the Disability Champions Network, we're creating and building those relationships to help people connect with all the other organizations that are also doing the same work. We see ourselves as a bridging project to bridge these steps and these pieces together while empowering young people with disabilities to be those bridge makers, to be those who are serving as the mentors and the supports within the process.
Tammy, if I may jump in with a question, because it's a perfect segue.
Yes.
Someone asked, how can we get involved or get our students involved? And I'll add on to that also our children involved if there's any parents in here.
Absolutely. So we are, as I said, we are just launching. And next week, the application process for both mentees and mentors will be available. At the end of this presentation, I do have our email address, and we will have that available. Right now we're social media. Our website will launch then as well, which will have an application for mentors and an application for mentees. We're reaching out to school districts in particular because we want to make sure that our matching can be, even though we will have virtual tools, can be both geographically possible for when we get back in person again and possible digitally. So they can share for now if they want to share their information. I don't know if they want to give it to you or reach out to us through the email I'm about to share. We will make sure that when those things launch, which is next week, they get a copy and they can sign up. We are also connecting directly with schools and school districts to, connect and talk to mentees and share more, because an application just sort of by itself online may not be clear exactly what it is. And so again, that information, it's disabilitychampionsnetwork@gmail.com is the email that we're using. And we invite people to send us, a message, and we will make sure that you get on our mailing list We have a Facebook page, so look for us.
We've got another question. It said, and will this work with upstate schools also? Will there be a contact person for the upstate or central New York area?
Yes, so the plan at this point, like I said, it is a grassroots action research project that we are getting going. And so we are seeking schools and professionals within those schools who are interested in connecting with us. I'm in Albany, so upstate New York, and we have partners who are just a bit west of us in Syracuse, and we have partners who are downstate. So depending upon where you are, the idea is for we want to build the network across the state. We're going gradually. We want to pilot it first, make sure that we have things in place. But if there's an individual who's interested, we will come to you and we will make it happen. I'm going to go just to the next slide. I think it has, this is just our, hey, come join us, which we'll send out to you, to your school district, to your superintendent, to whomever is interested in being a part of the network. And this is our email address for anybody who wants to take it down and send us a message. I wanted to also, I don't know if there's any other questions before I invite specific questions.
There are no specific questions in the chat right now, but I will invite people. If you're attending by phone, you can press *6 and unmute yourself and ask a question. And I will also keep looking in the chat and we'll jump in if there's a question.
Okay, so I have a question, and this is sort of where I'm hoping to be a bit interactive and hoping people will, take me up on this and write in the chat. We really are interested in hearing from people. Topics, obviously we already have some ideas, but topics based on your experiences for these engagement sessions that you think ought to come first, right? So we've talked about college visits, we've talked about financial literacy, we've talked about obviously goal setting, but topics that people think should come first. When you're working with young people, what isn't fitting into that time that you have in the classroom? What doesn't seem to be something that is coming up at home that you can really touch on? Where are those? And we'd love to for people to share those, and Helen, as they come in, which hopefully they are coming in, for you to share those with us and the others.
Yeah, I opened up the chat since we're at the end of the session, so everyone can see it.
Okay.
Everyone will be able to see what's put. Someone did say, at what age do you begin the program? I don't know if that is a topic suggestion or if that is a question.
So our plan is right now was to begin at age 14, although we have on the table 12. So I think it's 12 to 14, depending upon the district, depending upon the school, and depending upon the individual. We are probably not starting sooner than that in terms of the mentor to mentor match. However, the parent resources and the opportunity for parents to begin engaging in the process can happen at any point.
Awesome. And right now, I don't see any suggestions in the chat. I'll throw one out there. My background is actually in voting access and voting education. So it'd be really cool if there were a way to train the mentors on how to help the mentees on how to be civically engaged in registering to vote and getting involved in that way.
We really appreciate that. One of our committee members is a young woman. She's actually studying to be a teacher here at the university who also identifies with a disability. And she has talked a lot about that citizenship and the rights of citizenship and what it means to be denied your rights and what it means to be empowered to embrace and to take charge of your rights. And so I really appreciate that point and have written your name down as a volunteer to reach out to for more information as we build that session.
Yeah. I see in the chat someone wrote, my students typically have mild learning disabilities, and I find that there actually isn't a lot out there to help my students because they need only some help and guidance, but their parents also don't know where to turn.
Oh, that's really helpful. when you talk about that, because our goal was for there to be a range of ways that people could connect. So if we're talking about a mentor match that is one-to-one, we would hopefully match so that interests and needs were sort of aligned, so that whoever that mentor is might be just the level of support that an individual would need. Of course, this is the beginning of a project, so I cannot tell you, oh, and this is how it went, but I would love to connect with you more about your students and figure out ways that we can, fine tune for that the different levels and types of support. I do see that next question in the chat, which is, are we working with any community organizations versus schools? And we are indeed. In fact, the point when I say bridge is to bridge between the schools and the community organizations. And so in our collaborative group, we have about 3 or 4 educators who are working currently in special education in a few different areas, and then a few individuals with disabilities, mostly who identify as self-advocates, business owner, and the one I spoke of who is also a teacher, are studying to be a teacher, as well as working with Youth Power and the Regional Workforce Centers for Transformation. Did I say it right, Katrina? I'm terrible. I need to write these down before I say them.
It's Regional Centers for Workforce Transformation. It took me a while to get it.
Yes, so they are part of who we're working with, and NIAMP, like I said before. So we are connecting and seeking to connect with faith-based communities. So we do have sort of that piece has not yet happened. We'll probably be having a faith-based focused meeting this summer. But Stephanie Quarles, who is Emily's, Emily, you've worked with her through.
Yes. I wanted to add that she's a senior pastor at one of the major churches in New Rochelle. And when we reached out to her, she was very interested in that, in addition to finishing up her doctorate and herself having a son with a disability, and working on a mentoring project as a consultant, which really looked at empowering young people on the spectrum to become active and involved, not only in faith-based communities, but in community outreaches. So she's really looking forward to working with a coalition of ministers and faith-based communities across every faith-based entity to really begin to educate, use them as mentors and role models, and bring that piece into too, because communities is everybody, so we really want to make sure that we're very inclusive and that we're involving all segments of the community. Tammy, one of the things, yesterday I was in a very small meeting. It was kind of interesting because I was meeting with a young one that I'm doing some tutoring with. And she is, actually I'd mentioned to Katrina that I had someone I wanted her to mentor as a self-advocate. She's about 24 years old. Her mom died about 2 years ago, so she's now living with her aunt. And she's in a relationship where she now wants to move in with her boyfriend. So she says, just because I'm disabled doesn't mean that I shouldn't have a relationship. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I thought about in terms of, for the work that we're doing, this whole notion of life beyond work, community inclusion, but this whole notion of sexuality, relationship building, we should include that, because she wore me out. She said, you guys tell us everything else, but you don't tell us, how am I going to tell my aunt? She said, I want to practice before I decide if I want to marry this guy, So she said, my aunt's from the South. She doesn't want to hear about it. But she said that, quote, you professionals need to figure out ways to talk to us about it, and also be able to talk to our family members about the fact that, we want to be in relationships also.
And so that's a perfect example of what we seek to do as a bridging project, and that is to seek and find where those discussions of sexuality are happening and ensure that they come and are at the spaces where underserved communities and individuals who are seeking this mentorship can really connect with them.
Absolutely.
I see that Patricia Grover, you said in the Syracuse, yeah, that's a great, thank you for that. Really differentiating. And so we do have a logic model of the work that we're proposing to do. And it's really ensuring that what we provide is, again, a bridge to perhaps help navigate as someone is conversing with Access VR by creating the relationship space for an individual to ask questions and then reach back out or connect with informational spaces. So that is going to be very helpful, what you've provided there in the chat, for us to ensure that we're being holistic and looking at all that is there, being very cognizant that yes, you come in, you have your line of what we're doing and what we're suggesting, but with recognition that to build community, you have to be in the community and connecting with the community. And we are all that.
I'm gonna jump in if that's all right. I've got some direct messages. One is a short one. It says, so is the need for school districts to buy in or colleges to buy in? It may be a chicken or the egg.
So we are connecting individuals and we are reaching first out. Well, I shouldn't say first. We're reaching out for mentees among school districts and K-12 students. So we seek to support the transition process, recognizing that it exists, that there are needs for things like exploration and goal setting and planning and expanding and exploring opportunities. And so that's one arm. And then there's not an arm, that's one side. And then in addition to that, we seek mentors and the support that we want to share and provide for those experiences, for that connection in a relationship, and the sort of holistic examining of all that could possibly be out there. Obviously, you can't see all that's out there. Our focus is those relationships, mentor to mentee. And so in order to do that, we need both. And it is complex and complicated, and it is why we are connecting with individuals from each of those different spaces. But you are absolutely right. You have to start somewhere. So we've started with the mentor piece, and that has been community agencies, those who have graduated and aged out, and that is who is informing, that is who are the individuals, you know, that we're talking with and working with as we build the program. And that is where we'll start this summer. And then from there, and starting now, we've actually been working on this since about November, you know, talking and building. And from there, we then connect K-12 so that there's a group of individuals who are the mentees, who are the young people that they are connecting with, and hopefully reconnecting to their own experiences in that process.
Awesome, thank you. I have another direct message that says, in my experience, I have found that there is not much out there, really nothing I've come across or found out from others, for individuals who are medically fragile and nonverbal, including assessments for transitions, community activities, etc. The majority of activities out there are based on individuals who are less involved or verbal. This is such a disservice to the children who are involved as well as their families. Can you please comment on this?
Absolutely. I 100% wholeheartedly agree with you. I mean, I think that it seems to always be those who are least involved who are the first ones that we're able to serve. And there's sort of some obvious reasons for that. And speaking to that directly, it is why, I don't know if you noted, it is why Katrina, she talks about the voiceless ones, and she really literally means the voiceless ones. And so we really want to seek, and the idea of it being individual relationships and mentor matching is to hopefully mean that we can run the entire continuum of different needs and all the categories that exist, whether or not people like to subscribe to categories. It's obviously what we use in making determinations. And so that the program can bridge, and perhaps maybe that's where we focus efforts in finding any individual, all individual. And actually, from your point, perhaps we ought to be even more, if we talk about underserved, we ought to be even more attentive to including those individuals than any others.
Thanks so much. Another topic idea that was put in the chat is how to prepare for discussions with college disability services offices understanding what the disability is and explaining it to others, and then how college differs from high school in terms of self-motivation, accessing accommodations, available support, independent living skills, etc.
Absolutely. I saw that in the chat and wrote everything that you wrote there down, so I appreciate it. You know, obviously we've thought of some ideas related to these, but when you share your ideas very specifically, it makes us make sure that we're holistic and really considering, you know, collaboration only happens when you actually collaborate, and that means people sharing back. And I really appreciate you sharing that idea, and actually that series of ideas. Feel free to keep them coming. Feel free to email us more. And even like the chicken or the egg comment, things like that. Share with us the ideas of things you think we haven't thought of, because we really want to come off the ground, starting small, and do something that is meaningful and only uplifts everything that everyone else is doing. I see you asked about parent to parent of New York State. We have reached out. We're in the beginning processes of hopefully having the next meeting, and so yes and no. Like yes, but I haven't yet. So we have the email in place, and any other organizations that you think maybe we haven't thought of, or that you know of that you think would be interested, we'd love for you to share those with us, to throw them out there, to jump in and say, hey, no, let me sit down with me for 30 minutes and let me tell you what I think. We're interested. Let us know.
Awesome. I've got one more direct message. It says, another disservice to individuals with different abilities is, sorry, I'm trying to scroll, it's a little difficult. Disservice to individuals with different abilities is the diploma options in New York State. As Katrina noted, there's really only one route for students who are medically fragile or who have different abilities, and that is a CDOS credential, which is not even a diploma. Most school districts guide students such as this to receive this credential. Not sure where that leaves our kiddos in the future. Please comment.
Absolutely. That is one of the very concerns that led, I alluded in the beginning, we were having a discussion basically of talking about issues of equity around disability and intersectionality among a bunch of educators, community providers, individuals with disabilities. This is when Katrina shared her story and her vision. And it was in that space that this concept and the idea of CDOS and the idea of, you know, what are the opportunities we're actually providing if we lead people along a path that is, you know, narrow with this tunnel along the side and no opportunities to bridge out to others. And I think that the video piece, the development and the leadership that we want to build into the development of both mentors and mentees, who hopefully will eventually become mentors as they age into that process, right? As alumni of this program that we want to build, that we're building, will be to advocate around that. Now, I can't say I have the answer to how we're going to fight the, I don't want to say fight the man, because then I sound like I'm being, right? Fight the state or adjust the status quo. But I think that's one of our targets, is that when we say we're having mentorship, to build advocacy, and that advocacy that is inclusive not only of the individuals who serve as mentors, but everyone who's part of the entire community. And so all I can say to that is that we seek to advocate around that issue, and we invite your voice, and in whatever way you want to share it, to share more of your thoughts on that with us, because we have sort of what Katrina has shared and the experience of those among us, but we don't necessarily have what your specific experience is, the person asking the question, and we'd love to add that as we begin the advocacy process. I also do some advocacy work through the Council for Exceptional Children, and so we will intersect these opportunities and hopefully make some difference as we lift the voice.
Katrina, I see you unmute yourself. Did you have something to say?
I was gonna say that maybe we can add a topic on like guardianship and decision making, because I know so often students with disabilities, once they turn 18, guardianship is the first way that they go. And I was able to do a pilot program with supported decision making, and that's how I really build my circle of support.
Thank you for sharing. I wanted to add to the person asking about the different graduation requirements.
Yes.
I'm part of the Capital District Special Education Task Force, and we had a great presentation on different pathways to graduation. So if you're looking for that, I will put my email address in the chat and I can send that to you. Another comment, I feel bad. This is a great conversation and we're running short on time. Someone said, transition age vocational rehab, like Access VR or counselors through OCFS or OPWDD, work closely with schools and families to provide transition services. This might be another great resource. They may be able to share your program with their clients if they are not aware of it.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we have OPWDD, a couple of individuals from OPWDD working on our development of the program. And so you're right, Access VR is another that we need to, we've talked with them, but we haven't connected with them anytime recently. So I'm writing all of these things in my asset map. I'm making my own mentor map of resources and names. I'm like, okay, that one we have a person, this one we don't. So I appreciate you sharing that. And as well, the person who talked about the needs around transitioning to college and understanding the difference, in going from you being entitled to having to actually say, okay, I'm now eligible for this. And I have to make sure that I let people know that I need or want services. So thank you for that comment. I saw in the chat too.
Of course. I think we've got two more things that we can end on. It says school staff often don't know what's actually involved in the transition to college process. Students need to understand their learning style and how that's connected to recommended accommodations and learning strategies, since no one at college is going to require them to use their accommodations. And then last thing is the New York State Family and Community Engagement or FACE centers can inform parents about the diploma options and pathways as well. It connects students' interests with community businesses and employers as mentors.